quite a culture shock for me to come here because it was like throughout history, the Rosh Hashanah evening service is very, very, and I remember I did it the first time here, I give a speech and everything like that. It takes maybe half hour, and people were like, "That's it." And I was like, what else am I supposed to do? What else am I supposed to do? Now the Rosh Hashanah day service is long, relatively long. That's where we blow the shofar. That's a much more important service to go to, the Rosh Hashanah day, because that's where you do the mitzvah of hearing the shofar. On the Rosh Hashanah night, you don't hear the shofar, so it's not, you're not really doing the mitzvah. You're not really doing it's a mitzvah to pray, mitzvah to eat, but it's not the mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah. So that was quite a culture shock. So here, Friday night, the way Friday night kind of started was in a certain aspect, Friday night, if you're home Friday night, you're keeping Shabbos, right? You're not going anywhere, you're keeping Shabbos. So some people came to me though, they said, we want to do a Friday night service. So I said, and if you're leaving your house, then you should go to synagogue if you're going to leave anyways, right? So people came and went to Friday night. So I said, how often are you going to come? So people said around once a month. So I said, okay, we'll do it once a month. And that's how that started. But yeah, it's actually very interesting historically. Like throughout history, the Friday night service was really not as big, and it became big in the New World. It became big in the New World. Nowadays it's like, it used to be everyone was working on Saturday. Right? Hello. Is Lily coming tonight?
I don't think so. Her mother's still.
Well, there's one more.
Sorry.
No worries. So yeah, the way that's actually an interesting cultural idea. So it's really funny actually in South America, Friday night's a huge thing. But in like Russia, it's not really a thing to Friday night. I mean, traditionally you're supposed to pray with a minyan, 10 Jewish men, but really you're supposed to do that 3 times a day every day. Right. So Friday night is just another time you do it. But that's interesting culture. All right. All right, well, let's get started. So before we start, just want to mention a couple of things. A week from tonight at 5 o'clock will be my son Solomon's first haircutting. It's a community thing. It's a community thing to go to. It's like a tradition to cut some of his hair. You're all invited to come. There'll be dinner and, we'll cut his hair. He's turning 3. The high holidays are coming. I would say we do have a big dinner here. Everyone's invited to on the first night. But the most important thing on the high holiday is to hear the shofar on the first day and the second day of Rosh Hashanah. The first day will be next week. In 2 weeks on Tuesday. So the nighttime Rosh Hashanah starts Monday night. Then you have Tuesday, the morning service, you hear the shofar. And then you have Wednesday, the second day you hear the shofar. We do have services here, and I think they're decent. I enjoy them. They are, somewhat, the day one, it can be somewhat long. As we said, the night one is very, very short. And the day one can be somewhat long. For those who can't make it, or those who just want to come, we do have something at Founding Fathers at 4:30 p.m. next Tuesday, and we'll be blowing the shofar there as well. Now, I would suggest, blowing shofar is not just a skill, it's a very intricate system of Jewish law, how to blow the shofar. So it's important to make sure that you hear the shofar according to Jewish law. If you want to do the mitzvah, you got to do it right. If it's not done right, you didn't do it. So that's next week. And then, we got all the other high holidays. Make sure you mark your calendars and when to come. There's a lot of different things. I know you're going to Australia, right?
Yeah, but not till October 7th.
October 7th. Okay, so you're going to be there for Sukkot, for the second holiday. Sukkot is a very important holiday.
Back with the next class.
Where are you going to be in Australia?
But Adelaide and Sydney.
Adelaide and Sydney. All right. Cool. Well, there's definitely large Jewish communities over there.
Yes, there are.
Okay, let's get started.
I've had my friends jobs.
Peter, you can take that throne there if you'd like. That brown one. Sure.
Yeah, a friend of mine to another chapel here, breaks something. Yeah, and there's a funeral. But the man's been dead for a week and I thought he was supposed to bury them the next day. So I don't know what to expect. Is this just like a,
I mean, in general, funerals are supposed to be as soon as possible,
yeah,
but in small towns and different factors might delay things sometimes. You know, it's not, it's not the best way of doing it, but that's just it's sometimes out of your control. So
could he already be buried? And this is like some kind of.
I don't know, but sometimes there's difficulties in releasing the body or this or that. There's sometimes things that push it off, which are beyond your control, and that's just the way life is, right? Generally we try to bury someone as soon as possible. But like, place like Prescott also sometimes, there's small cemeteries here that takes time to schedule and everything like that. It's not really a big city when it comes to those things. So
Thank you.
okay, so let's get started. We are going to do our 5th week here. We're going to finish off our course today. Now, the best thing you could do after this course, is to get a siddur, a prayer book, and read every day from the siddur and pray. Pray a little bit in Hebrew. That is probably the best thing you can do to use your Hebrew skills and get better and better at Hebrew. Another great book, which is a little bit more difficult to read, but it's also really great, is the Psalms in Hebrew. The Psalms are considered the biblical prayer book. So that's another way of practicing your Hebrew.
What do you mean the biblical prayer?
So if you look at the Bible, let's say the Torah is like a book of stories, right? Now it has all the laws and rules and all these different things, but it's all told over in a way of like stories. It always says, God spoke to Moses saying, do this and this, do that and that, right? The Psalms are a book of King David's prayers. So, when we look at our siddur, most of the siddur that we pray is from the Psalms. Most of the prayers we say are from the Psalms, right? Because it's like King David's prayer. And we believe that, when we pray, we don't always know what to say, what to ask for. But King David, right? King David definitely did. And so when one of the ways we pray is by reading Psalms. And that's actually something that pretty much every Jewish great-great-grandmother did most of their day, reading Psalms. Believe it or not, throughout history, Jewish women were always famous for just reading Psalms and bringing peace into their life and their home and their family. Okay, so now we're going to go lesson 5. We're going to focus on the few remaining vowels. Now, I want to share the next one is, when you're teaching kids, is the most difficult one. And it's quite difficult, it's quite confusing. But today, we are going to teach it in an easy way. If you want to get fancy, after, you're welcome, free to do that. But let's get started. So, okay, so this one here is called Shiva. Shiva is a short I, as in if. So if, right? So you have these examples here. You have v'gam, v'cha, right? That's what it is. 2 dots is an if. Now, the truth is there's different forms of the shva depending on when it is in the word. And we're not going to do that today here. And if you look in our siddur, you'll see sometimes there's a star on top of it, an asterisk, and that means it has a slightly different sound. But we're going to keep it very, very simple here. And I'll show you a little bit of it, but we're going to keep it simple. It's going to be the short I. Silent shva. Now, if it is at the end of the word, it is silent. In other words, it just takes the sound of the word. So here you have, in these words, you have bivno tayich malach, right? Malach. It is just silent. In other words, you don't say malach, right? So I, that is the sound of shiva. Now here, if we look at this here, there's a symbol sometimes found in the prayers, and this asterisk is there to show kind of like how much you should put more effort on. So let's say this is licha Dodi, likiras, right? But a lot of times what happens is when the shva is in the middle of the word, it's harder to say the I sound, right? So I think the way we're gonna teach it is we are going to if it's in the middle of the word, you could say the I sound always, but you'll see when it's in the middle of the word, it's not gonna come out as well. It's gonna sound shorter, right? It's just gonna be slurred in. So let's say in those words, let's say the last one, you're gonna say nikabila, right? Nikabila. Everyone see this last word there? So let me just read that. All right, so let's do it like this. Nikabila. All right, so that is how we are going to do shva. Shva is a short I.
Could you go back one page?
Yeah, sure.
That first left. Okay, so on the top, so that's a vav with
So vi. A vav with the shva is gonna be vi.
the, and the vav didn't have those, the shva under it.
It would be silent. You wouldn't have any vowel, so you wouldn't know how to read it. Well, so we're gonna say when there's a shva, we're gonna put a short I sound. So it's gonna be vi. As an if. Yeah. Very good, yeah.
What's the point of having it at the end if it doesn't have the sound, and why not just have, not?
It's a good question, but oh, hello. It's a good question. The truth is it's a good question. The two dots, just grammatically, they're going to make it more of a stop. That's just the way it is. Bivnosayich or bivnosayich. So it's really a slight change. Like a lot of things, what we're not studying today, but when you read the Torah, based on vowels, will tell you where to put the stress. So like this is something that in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew or Sephardim, they're always going to put the stress on the end of the word, right? So they're going to say Shabbat Shalom, right? Ashkenazim are generally going to put it at the beginning of the word, unless the vowels show otherwise. So there are different layers of vowels that we're not really teaching here, but like when you're reading the Torah and you're doing something very precise, it'll make a difference. It'll make a difference on if you'll read bivno tayich or bivno tayich, right? So those different things, but we're not going to go into that in this course here. All right, so let's read these together. So this again, Shiva is a short I. And I would say that Shiva, so a lot of kids, I remember as a kid, they make you review it because it's just a little bit of a tricky because it sometimes doesn't fit so well in the word. Sometimes it sounds shorter than a regular I. Not a break, but again, the way vowels are arranged can also affect other aspects of pronunciation, which we're not covering here. So, okay. So let's read this here. We have I, be, ve, ge, de, he, ve, ze, ke, ke, che, le, me, ne, se, e, pe, fe, tse, ke, re, she, se, te, te. All right, very good. Now we'll mix them up a little bit. All right. Ke, se, te, ge, le, e, se, de, ze, e, te, ne, she, ke, fe, ve, be, ye, che, me, te, pe, ve, he, se, te, re. Okay, very good so far. Now we're gonna mix up the words like we did last week. So the first one is ve katz. Ve katz. All right? Ve katz. Okay, so let's read them. Ke kots. Ve I. Me shal. Be chag. Le kash. Ye me. Ve tof. Ge vul. Ye ro. She chem. Ke tsar. Le kach. Ve ram. Be cha.
Cool.
All right. Okay, we're just getting into this. Okay, let's do this one now, this page here. So now we're going to mix them together. Now you'll note that in here we have a bunch of times that it's in the middle of the word. You'll see how it sounds a little different just automatically. So let's read this together. We're holding, this is page 62, right?
62 people. Yeah.
So ve ke tsev. Ti da bear. Bi na si tom ri vi eat toch. Remember, so that's the shiva at the end and the chaf. It's just a short stop. Bi gat vi ka yam vi rov cha si de cha vi chem la li va vi cha me lech. Okay, that was great. Now, if we have extra time, we'll go back and study them. But we'll learn some prayers this week, and then you can practice those prayers. Now we have 3 more vowels. They are called the chataf vowels. They look very, very scary. And you see they're kind of, chataf means kind of snatch, quick. But we actually are going to sound them, and we're going to ignore the shva on the side. Generally speaking, you can ignore it. For those who are extremely precise with their Hebrew reading, it'll make a difference in how you formulate the word, how you pronounce the word. But for most people speaking Hebrew, they don't make a difference. So when you see this vowel and it's really scary, what you do is you just ignore that. Ignore the shava. So this is going to be a segel, a sound, a patak, a sound, and kamatza, a sound, right? We're going to just ignore those 2 dots. It's not really cheating. Again, most people when they're reading Hebrew are not reading it so precisely. And even when it comes to the preciseness, so like let's say, and also like, as I said before, most people when they're reading Hebrew, they're not going to affect where they accentuate the word so much. And that's just the way most people do it. So now let's practice reading these vowels, right? So who wants to try reading the first one? Ka-dam, right? Ka-dam. We ignore the 2 dots. We ignore when it's a chataf. When there's 2 dots on the vowel, we ignore it. It really makes it that simple. Ka-dam, da-mi. Ka-ri. So that's the 3rd letter on the first line. Now we'll continue. Cha-li. Sa-ri. A-ni. Ka. Veil, cha, reim, a, ni, ra, I, li, ma, cha, rat. So this one, Mar, da, chai. That's Mordechai, right? Now, Mordechai, when we pronounce it, we say it with kind of a lot of stuff. A lot of words that you hear, we kind of slur. So this is Mordechai. But we're going to read Mardechai. Mardachai. And when you're reading the Megillah, it's really important when you're reading the Megillah, which from the scroll, the person reading the Megillah from the actual scroll, It's very important that they accentuate and they do it properly according. Sometimes it says Mordechai, Mardechai. Sometimes it says Mordechai, Mordechai. You know, there's different versions actually if you look carefully in the Megillah. But if you're praying, it's typically not a big difference. These things are primarily make a difference when someone is reading the Torah for everybody. All right, bottom one. A, ha, lech, ke, fa, a, lo, ya, Ahmad. All right, now we got more of them. So again, ignore the two dots. Ignore the shava when it is with another vowel. Ahmad, Agag, Hadam, Adon, Achet, Hamor, Halom, Ale, Le, Re, Acha, Yaakov, Eshta, Ve, Adon, Asher. Don't be scared of big words. It just means you got to cover it with your thumb and you got to just do letter by letter because Hebrew, you know, in English, I've taught my kids to read. It's like you kind of like start the word and then you do this like jump and you hope the word might kind of make sense. And then you get older and there were certain words when I was a kid where they said, oh, this is proper grammar, this is how you pronounce it. And people would make mistakes. And then as I got older, I see not only do people make those mistakes, but actually the dictionaries pick up and they change the pronunciation and say, well, this is the way people pronounce it, you know? So Hebrew is not like that. Hebrew, you can really take every letter on its own. Okay, now we are going to read another page of this. And I know these are big, scary words, but this is really, we're finishing to read Hebrew now. And then we're going to go and learn some exceptions. There's a few exceptions that are important to know. Vil, dom, goes, chol, mar, chezak, rot, mu, chezar, ta, mu, na, ta, cha, met, ve, mi, da, ve, vir, we're in the last line. Li, lim. Ma, de, ta. Tsu. All right, great job. Great job. Now we're going to learn some exceptions. Any question? You have a question? Yeah, sure.
Just be in a row.
So there are two versions of U. There are two versions of U and two versions of O. The two versions of O are going to, so the two versions of U are going to be a dot on the stomach. So we said in the class lesson, we said when the ball hits you in the stomach, knocks the down, you say ooh, right? Okay. When the ball goes over the valve, you say oh, right? Or we said
Right, yeah.
oh, like a headache. And the three dots under are also ooh, and just one plain dot is also. So there are two versions of O. Two versions are you have this one here, and you have this one here, right?
Right.
And the two versions of U are this one here, and I don't think we have another kibbutz here.
Three, like in three.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's
Excellent.
juggling. When we said we're juggling, and you drop the balls, it says oops, right? Okay.
I don't remember ever learning these. Is my memory failing? Or-
Learning the chatafs,
Yeah.
a lot of people just ignore them. If you look in the sitter, you'll see they're there, and it's important to learn the name of them because all the vowels are symbolic of spiritual things. So it's important to learn the name, but for reading practically on a regular reading, we don't really put a focus on them.
Are these words?
Most of them are words or names. Some of the words from Psalms, but yeah, they're all words. Okay, let's do some exceptions. Okay, so how do you read that? Patach chet. Cha, right? Now, if that is at the end of a word, we read it as ach. Ach. So this first word would be lu ach, right? And we don't say lucha, we say lu ach. If it's a patachet at the end of a word, we say ach. Ru ach, shlo ach, right? So at the end of the word, the vowel is pronounced before the letter. That's how it says it here. The chet. When there's a chet, we pronounce the vowel, the patach, before the letter. Now we're going to read a lot of examples. Okay, so some of them are really important, but let's go in order. So we have our first one says shli ach, ko ach, no ach. All right, so that's a really good way to remember. The word Noach, which is Noah in the Bible, is only 2 letters. It's that third word. It's no ach, because when there's a patach with a chet at the end of the word, instead of saying cha, we say ach, right? So this one here is no ach. We wouldn't read it no cha, right? In order to write no cha, it would have a hey after chet to make the chet not at the end of the word, right? But if the chet is the last letter and there's a patach underneath, we read it as ach. So now we got our fourth word here, ta, tse, li, ach. Now the second line, po, te, ach. Vi, sa, me, ach. Now we have the third word. This is a really important one. Ma, shi, ach. Right? Mashiach is the Messiah, the Jewish Mashiach, right? That's how we say Mashiach. Ba, tu, ach. Ma, she, gi, ach. Mi, ze, be, ach. Ma, te, be, ach. Ha, mi, sha, le, ach. The last one is actually one of the most common words in the Psalms. Lam, me, na, se, ach. Okay, great. So you got that down. That is the exception of the chet at the end of the word. So the chet at the end of the word is not read cha with a patach. It is read ach. So before that, it might be e ach, a ach, o ach. Okay. Now another one which we see when you have a yud with no vowel in the middle of the word. Let me do that again. A yud with no vowel in the middle of the word, it is silent. It's a silent yud. So we read it like this. Li, fa, ne, cha. So li, fa, ne, cha. The yud is silent. You can pretty much ignore that it's there. Now, when the yud is at the end of the word, and we mentioned this before, it kind of becomes a helper, right, to the previous vowel. Now, what would some do is if there's a E sound, they would make it a little bit longer. So they would say ni, right? Now, practically speaking, you don't really need to do that except for a patach. So let's read this. Ni chai. Right, we read that as chai. So the yud actually makes the patach go further. It's like a y at the end. Chai, bi, ni, she, ma, ti. All right, so that is our next. So when it's at the end, it kind of serves as a helper. So the yud makes a difference at the end, but in the middle of a word, a yud is silent. If it has no vowel, again, if it has a vowel, you will read it with the vowel. But if it has no vowel, it is silent. Okay, now another thing which you find a lot. It is not necessarily as common anymore. Like they've made fonts to fix this, but a lot of the typing with vowels can be difficult. So this is something you find. It's somewhat rare, but it's called dot sharing. So here you have a word, mo, right? Can we read this? Mo? Cholam mem. Mo, right? It's got that dot there. Now here you have this word says Moshe, right? What's Moshe? Moses, right? This is how you say Moshe. Now, sometimes what you'll find is it'll be written like this. Now, this is tricky, right? Because you look at this, and if this dot is going to go with the mo, then you don't know if this is a shin or sin, right? If this dot is going to go with the shin, then you don't know what vowel this is. Well, through process of deduction, when there's one dot, it means that you can share it, right? They're really, so now there are like sometimes new fonts where they'll put like 2 dots, one will be smaller or something like that, they'll do it. But in case you find like this, you use your seichel, you use your brain, right? And you put this dot for both of them. Because there's no other option. But that's oftentimes how it's written. So that's
Yeah,
Moshe.
what if it's Masha?
Well, there's no vowel, then you'd have to put another vowel under the mem. So if there was another vowel in the mem, we wouldn't be sharing. But since there is no vowel, it must be the vowel is the dot, is the cholam, and that makes it a mo, and that makes it a Moshe. Yes, there has to be a vowel in every letter. I mean, the only exceptions to that are letters at the end of the word. Certain letters, hey, aleph, and certain letters at the end of the word, certain of final letters, where just a short sound, and the yud in the middle. But otherwise, every letter has to have a vowel. We don't just slur over letters if it doesn't have a vowel. Every letter has to vowel, and except certain exceptions, the ones at the end of the word and things like that. Okay. All right, any questions?
Does it only work with an M, right? You can have out there.
No, any letter, if you find one dot, right? So if this was a sin, the dot would be on the left, right?
Yeah, so it.
So sometimes you'll find a sin cholam. In other words, the dot will be on the left, and you'll know that the dot is referring to make it a sin and also an o sound. So would be the sound, right? So yeah, any letter, if you have one dot on the right, then you know it's gonna, and there's no vowel on this letter, you know it's gonna serve. If there's a vowel, then you follow that vowel.
The dot sharing is only for dots that are on the top.
Typically, yeah. Dots at the top, and only dot sharing is with a shin and a sin. Because those are the only ones that can get confused. Yeah, it's a shin and a sin. A sin cannot share the O with the previous letter, but a sin can the dot on the left side can sometimes serve 2 purposes. If there's no vowel underneath the sin, the dot on the left could be a O sound and also this making it a sin. So it would be so, right?
So the dot sharing is only the sin and shin.
Yes, the dot sharing is with the shins and the sins. A lot of these exceptions are not so common. The ach one is important. That's more common than you think when you have the chet at the end. But a lot of them, there are common mistakes. I've heard many people when they see the yud in the middle, they'll read this like lifanecha. They'll think like the yud, but it does when it's in the middle. The yud is silent. It's lifanecha. The yud, it doesn't. Just confuses us. Oh, at the end. So here, I mean, when I was a kid, they would say if you have a chirik, so chirik is the E sound underneath, right? They would say you should make the chirik longer if there's a yud.
Ani.
Between me and you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. But when you have it after a patach or a kamatz, then you're going to make it from a cha to a cha. Yeah, you're going to have a short yud sound.
B, and the next one would be.
So-
B.
B, yeah.
L'chaim.
Just B. Huh?
L'chaim.
So l'chaim is interesting because if you read the word l'chaim, it says le ha yim, right? So it has the yud has a chirik underneath. It has a dot underneath. So you can actually unslur that and make it le cha yim, and it's actually. But this here, this chai, it's like it has no vowel, right? The yud has no vowel, so the yud is not really having like a strong stress. but it's kind of sinking the ship a little bit, you know? It's kind of making the cha into a chai. Okay, so that's dot sharing. Any questions? Before we move on, kind of change the zone, change the theme a little bit. Okay, so that's dot sharing, Moshe. Okay. Okay, so many of you probably heard of the prayer, the Moda'ani. The Moda'ani is probably one of the most important prayers that we say every day. Now, in Jewish tradition, we say the Moda'ani as soon as we wake up in the morning. That's the first thing we're supposed to do. Before we think about anything, before we think about our finances, our health, the politics in the world, or anything like that, we are supposed to say thank you to God for giving us another day. Now, it's very, very important in Judaism. I actually heard that someone asked the Rebbe, someone asked the Rebbe's mother, what do you think your son's favorite prayer is? And she said, I think it's the Moda'ani. The Moda'ani. And they asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, yes, it's the Moda'ani. The Moda'ani is a prayer. Basically, we say thank you to God for giving us another day. Now, like, think about that for a second. It's very important in Judaism that it's very important in Judaism that and in life, that we always start off with gratitude. Because the opposite of gratitude is entitlement, right? When a lot of times what happens is we feel entitled and we're not getting what we want and we live with resentment, regret. But the gratitude, when you wake up with gratitude, you say, wow, God gave me another day, then most of your problems will go away, right? Because the fact that you're alive is something to celebrate. But if the fact that you're alive is just scientific and just by chance, then you're already kind of in deficit. You know, why are you alive? Oh, you have all the struggles. Why do you need all these struggles? Why do you need everything? But if you wake up with gratitude, then you're already on the giving end. You know, you're already like, wow, I have a day to live, right? So in Judaism, we believe that our soul, when we go to sleep, our soul leaves our body, at least a certain percentage. The Talmud says when somebody's sleeping, they're 1/60th dead. 1/60th dead. They're not as alive when they are sleeping. And when we wake up, our soul returns into our body and gets recharged with more energy. That is why sleep gives us more energy. A lot of times we take these things for granted, but why does sleep give us more energy? In fact, sleep is a very strange thing, right? Why does it give us more energy? I mean, what is it about it? Where does this energy come from? So in Judaism, we believe that our soul returns back to its origin and goes to the spiritual realms and gets more energy. And then it comes back down and it's able to give life, right? And that makes a little bit more sense, right? So when we wake up, we say thank you to God. And we say thank you for returning our soul to us and giving us another day. So this is a very important prayer, and we have it on the card there. And I think this is a very good thing to say every day. And we traditionally say it as soon as we wake up. In Judaism, we're very into having clean hands when we pray and being prepared to pray. But this is a prayer that we say before we wash our hands, before we do anything, hopefully before we look at our cell phones or anything like that. We say, thank you, God, for giving us another day. Simple as that. So we'll read this prayer in Hebrew. Yeah. Some say there is, some say there isn't. There was this guy who came from Israel a couple years ago, and he was trying to sell books from Israel, and he sold some. You know, he's a very nice guy. So he actually had a different version for men and for women. But I told him, I said, you know, even if it's logical, you know, the prayers are created by the sages, and they're very, very deep. And it's very difficult in Jewish law to change them. There's a tremendous amount of respect. Don't change them. Don't change the prayers. The rabbis knew better than us. The ancient rabbis knew better than us. Don't change them. So I told him, I said, you should go around Jerusalem and interview all the elderly women and find out if they had a special way of saying it for women. But you shouldn't just change it. And he disagreed with me, and you know, that's fine. But yeah, they're typically, I don't believe women. Some women would say moda. That's the Hebrew word grammatically. But to my knowledge, I think most just say moda. It's a soul thing, you know. All the prayers are soul things. So, you know, when people change prayers, you have to be very, very careful. And in general, when you change Judaism, you have to be very careful because I can guarantee if you change it 1%, your kids are going to change it more. And then it's just going to keep changing it, keep changing and changing. So today we're going to keep it regular. I don't think there's a problem if someone will say it with the women in pronunciation, but I do think that you got to be very careful with those things. So let's read this together. This is the prayer. We'll read it. Mo de a ni le fa ne cha me lech chai ve ka yam she he che za re ta bi nish she ma ti be che me la ra ba mu na ka. Okay, let's do it one more time. Mo de a ni le fa na ka me les chai ve ka yam she he che zar ta bi nish ma ti be chem me la ra ba mu na te cha. So this is a really great thing to start doing in Hebrew every morning and say, say it. And this is a very good prayer. I'll just translate it. It's actually a very interesting translation. There's actually different ways to translate. So what we say is, thank moda. So the truth is, in Hebrew you should say, I thank you, God. But we believe that we say, thank you, I. In other words, we say the thank you before we say I, right? And that has to do with the fact that the I, who we are, is not really who we are. It's really our soul, who we are. So, right? So we say modani, which means I thank you. But moda, thank you, I, lifanecha, before you, melech chai v'kayam, the living and everlasting King, shehechazarta bi, that you return to me, nishmati, you return my soul to me, b'chemla, with graciousness, rabba emunatacha, which means great is your faith in me. Right, great is your faith in me. We say, God, if you gave me life, it must be you have faith that I'll do good things, right? That it's worthwhile. So that's what we say. Okay, so that is the first prayer we learned, and we're gonna now read another prayer that we sing here every Shabbat. We sing it here, and many people sing it, but we're gonna just read it now because and the next prayer is probably one of the most important prayers in the Jewish prayers, is the Shema. Now, what is so important about the Shema? Well, first of all, if we look at our Siddur, the Shema is a prayer from the Bible. And the Torah says you need to say this prayer 2 times every day in the Shema. It says you got to say this prayer when you get up and when you go to bed. So when we look at the Siddur, the Torah says you got to pray every day, but it doesn't say how to pray. Now, our Siddur that we have was basically the rabbis during the Second Temple saw that people were praying for things they didn't need. Because people do not know what they need. They don't understand what they need. And therefore, the rabbis put together the prayer book, and they said, if you say this, you will end up praying for what you need. Because what you need isn't really what you need, it's really what God needs you to need, right? So that is what they saw. So they put the prayer book together, and we follow, and they were very strict. You got to follow the prayer book because it's a mitzvah to pray for what you need, and you have to know what you need, and you don't, right? So we're going to tell you what you need because we know from the Torah that we have a purpose in the world. We know the Torah tells us what we need, right? And you might not be familiar with it. So that's what the prayer book is. But the Shema prayer is actually the prayer straight out of the Torah. And this is obviously the prayer that, we say at the end of Yom Kippur. They say at the end of Yom Kippur, as soon as the fast ends, this year it's about 7 o'clock at night at Yom Kippur. We say this prayer. It's very, very meaningful to say it. And we are meant to say it. It declares God being the one only true reality. Throughout all generations, this is what Jewish people said when they were needed to give their life. They would say the Shema, right? They would say the Shema. And they say, everything is God. Everything is God. And it's a mitzvah to say it every morning, every night. And so we'll read this prayer here, and we'll read it first regular, and then we will read it afterwards. We can sing it the way we sing it in synagogue. If you come here, if you come here after probably 3 weeks, you'll know it by heart. But so now these lines here, you're gonna find them throughout the prayer books. You don't have to worry about them. You don't have to worry about them. As I said many times, there's many layers of grammar in Hebrew, and they are subjects of debate. They can be very, very, difficult to understand, and for the most part, regular people can ignore them. Okay, so we're going to read this. Shema Yisrael Adonai. Okay, so that Yud Yud is God's name. We don't write. Okay, so this is something very confusing to people, but we don't pronounce God's name, which is spelled Yud K Vav K. Like some people would say Yahweh, which wouldn't be appropriate pronunciation anyways, but we don't say it for almost 2,400 years. Jews don't say it. You only say it when, now that name of God is, I'll just briefly, that name of God is the transcendent name of God. There's multiple names of God in the Torah, and they all mean different things. So, like for example, Eloheinu, right? It means our Lord, right? That means God the way He is in this world. Everything in this world is God. Everything in this world is God. Everything's made for God, by God. Nothing in this world needs God. I gave a class a couple of days ago in Touchmark. We don't believe there's any evil in the world. Evil is just hidden good. We don't see how it's good, but everything's God, right? So this word, Eloheinu, means God the way He is in this world. It's a creator, created this world. Where do we see God? We see Him through the world. The Yud K Vav K name, that we don't even pronounce the spelling, that name is God the way He is transcendent beyond the world. God is infinitely beyond the world. Now, in the temple in Jerusalem, the first temple, God was present in a transcendent way. There were 10 miracles that happened constantly in the temple. Do you know what it would mean if there were constant miracles in the temple? It would mean that if someone would come and say, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God. Someone would say, you don't believe in science? Go to the temple, you'll see the miracles. Are you stupid? Look, it's miracles happening, right? It's kind of the opposite of now. Nowadays, if you're a believer, it's almost illogical. If you follow logic, right? But back then, it was fully logical because God's transcendent name was revealed. Now, where was it most revealed? So it was revealed in the Holy of Holies. So the Ark was in the Holy of Holies. Now the Holy of Holies was, let's say, 15 feet by 15 feet. Now the Ark had poles, right? And the poles in the Ark were, let's say, there were 50, the poles were 17 and a half feet. And the Ark was, sorry, I'm mixing up feet in the cubits in the Torah, right? So the Ark was, let's say, 18, the poles were, let's say, 18 feet long, but they fit in this room that was only 15 feet, right? So it doesn't really make sense. And now the place of the Ark was the extra 3 feet. The place of the Ark was extra 3 feet. So the place of the Ark took no space. So what would it look like if you went in there? Now, only the high priest got to go in there once a year. But what it would look like was, it would be very confusing. If you would take a tape measure, it would measure 15 feet. But then if you look at the Ark and say, wait, it should be more than 15 feet. And it wasn't, right? So what did it look like? It looked like a paradox. It didn't make sense. Now, when that was existing on our world, on planet Earth, then we would say God's transcendent name. Because here, God is transcending nature, right? He's like making 2 + 2 = 10. That's what God's doing, right? Which is like totally against science, right? Totally against mathematics. So when God was doing that in the world, there were many more miracles, many more prophets, which are all transcendent by nature. And in the temple, they would say God's name properly because God was present properly. After the destruction of the first temple, God was no longer present properly in the world. He was no longer revealed. That side of God wasn't revealed in the world, it was hidden. So they started saying Adonai, right? What does Adonai mean? It means my master. Because in the world, the way we live it, without God's presence revealed, we view God as a master. A master doesn't say anything about God. It says what he does, right? He's the master. He's the creator. When you try and describe God beyond master or creator, you can't do it, right? Because intellect cannot fathom that. So when God was revealed in the world beyond intellect, we would say God's name properly. But when he became no longer revealed, we can't say his name anymore because it's meaningless, right? Doesn't represent anything. Words have to represent. So we started calling God the master. Now, when Mashiach comes and the third temple is rebuilt in Jerusalem and the ark is restored, then once again, God will be present the way he is beyond nature. And when that happens, we will once again say his name. So just want to summarize that. A lot of confusion about that. So a lot of times in the Siddur, it will spell out God's name as Adonai, or it will have a Yud Yud, which means God's name as well. So now let's read it again. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malechuto Liolam Va'ed Ve'ahaveta 8 Adonai Elohecha Bechol Levavecha Uvechol Nafeshecha Uvechol Meodecha. Fourth line. Vehayu hadivarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha vishinan nitam levanecha Vidibareta bam beshivtecha bevetecha uvelachetecha vaderech uveshachebecha Kumecha ukisharetam leot al yadecha vehayu litotafot bein einecha uchetavetam al mizuzot beitecha uvishearecha. Great job, right? Great job. You guys did that prayer. So I'm going to say now how we sing it in synagogue. Now, traditionally, we cover our eyes for the first line. So if you want to do that, you got to memorize the first line, which you may have memorized, or you could just do this and look at the siddur. We do that to concentrate, to trying to disconnect for the world. It's kind of like Shabbat, trying to disconnect for the world a little bit. So let's we'll sing it the way we sing it in synagogue. For those you guys who know, those who don't, you're welcome to come pray here whenever you want, and you'll probably learn a little bit more Hebrew. You'll see when we sing it, a lot of times the vowels get a little bit slurred. That's okay, as long as it's not too much. If it's too much, then it ruins the word. It could put a different meaning to the word. But generally, it's okay. So we sing Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Liolam Va'ed Ve'ahavita et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meyodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha vishinan tam levanecha v'dibareta bam b'shivitecha beveitecha uvelechtecha vaderech uveshachbecha uvekumecha ukisharatam leot al yadacha ve'ayu letotafot bein einecha uchitavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvishiarecha. So this is the prayer that we're supposed to say it every morning, every night. Now the truth is, women don't have to say it every morning because women are not women don't have to do time-bound mitzvahs. That's really the essential mitzvah difference between men and women is women, there's two types of mitzvahs that women don't do, which is very, very interesting. Women don't have to do time-bound mitzvahs. So men, time-bound mitzvahs. So men have to pray 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and night. Women could just pray once during the day. They don't have to, they're not bound in time. But it's traditional to say the Shema before you go to sleep. And you're supposed to say it during the day also. And the Moda Ani, it's not really time bound. It's when you wake up. It's not really time bound. You know, if you wake up late in the afternoon, then that's when you say it, right? But yes, these are really great things to practice for starters. Yeah. This is the first paragraph of the Shema. Yeah. Well, so the Shema, I mean, we sing this every Shabbat. We sing it very slowly. In fact, there's somebody who like complains to me. Well, he always complains. You do this too fast, this too slow. But I always do this slow because it's the most important part of the prayer. And it's like something that people are supposed to know and learn. And this is the best one to come out of your ears, right? Because, you know, this is one of the most important ones. You know, there's a lot of apps. I know on Android, iPhone, there's even a Shema going to sleep app for kids. Where like, you know, it says the Shema with the kid. It has like a little game and everything like that. You know, it has this little game, like the kid has to flush the toilet and brush his teeth and turn off the light. And then it says sing Shema. But yeah, you know, now this is the first half of what's written in the mezuzah. What's written in tefillin, mezuzah. Something remarkable, if you ever want to see something remarkable, they have these videos. So when people convert to Judaism, they end up going to the mikvah, and the rabbis have this whole thing. The rabbis have to see them going to mikvah, but they can't see them naked, right? But it's this whole process. And then they finish, and then they tell them, okay, you're Jewish, now say the Shema. And it's the first time they say the Shema when they're Jewish. And you can see the videos online. It's like they always like break down crying. It's because when they convert, you know, they're given such hell that it's so difficult. They make it so difficult, and then they finally overcome and they finally finish, and it's a remarkable thing. But this is the Shema prayer, and that is the final slide for this class. Thank you very much for joining. If you have any questions, reach out. If you want to read Hebrew, I can always recommend other things to read Hebrew. But one of the you guys have all the tools now, so the only thing that you're going to add is fluency, reading more, you know, and there's so many things to read. And there's so many things that a lot of people come here on Shabbat and they use the transliteration in the back of the siddur, which that's cool and that's great. Friday nights, people use the transliteration. That's great to follow along, but it's also good to take something not to use transliteration, something to break your teeth on a little bit, because there's no other way to become fluent as of now, except for reading it again and again and again. You know, little kids don't have a problem with it. They, you know, but adults have a hard time doing that. Adults don't like to do that. Adults feel they're old dogs. They don't like to know new tricks. But that is the only way, is fluency and reading it again and again and keep trying to read the Hebrew. You know, If you come here, I'm not going to push you. No one's going to push you to do it. No one's going to push you to do it. And but it's a good thing to do. And even if you're praying and it's going to take slower, sometimes it's okay to take that Hebrew thing and go slower in order to get fluency in it. Yes.
I see some squiggles, I don't recognize.
Yeah, so when you look at the Psalms and you look at the Torah, there's a bunch of more squiggles. That is actually the tune that it's supposed to be read in. The Psalms, we don't really know the tune. I mean, but the Torah, we know the tunes that is supposed to be read in, but you can disregard that.
Peter.
How to read the tune? Yes. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to focus on the tune unless you're reading, reading the Torah. Otherwise, you don't have to focus on the tune.
In the Torah, it looks like there's like sometimes there's three things sticking out on the chain.
Yeah, so that is the biblical way of writing. So we mentioned, so in the Torah, there are crowns on the letters. And the Torah, Mezuzah's Tefillin, there are crowns on the letters. So you'll notice those crowns on the letter are not in regular prayer books. We don't write those crowns unless we're writing an actual Torah on parchment, because that's the special, we spoke about a couple weeks ago, like the special print, God's special print. We don't, we only use that for the Torah, and everything else is not going to have those crowns. Any other questions? I have a lot of prayer books there. If you want, I don't have it right here, but I have like old prayer books, which when people want to pray, they're like the cover fell off or whatever it is, which I give to people because we got new prayer books. You need new prayer books about every 8 years in the synagogue. I talked to many friends, they wear out, over the years. So I don't have it here, but I do have in a box, in storage. I do have prayer books, and next time you come, I can gladly give you. Any other questions?
Need a teacher.
Need a?
Yes, it's next for us, yeah.
What's next?
Oh,
You really don't need a teacher to continue. Oh, well, you know how to read Hebrew now. Now, I'll explain what I mean. Oh, what prayers to do. So yeah, I'll gladly share prayers to do. What I would do is I would start, you have a Modani card. A Modani card, that prayer that we said, it's 2 lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there. You have that card. Take that card out of the box, and that's your homework until you get that fluently. What number is it? 68A. 68A.
It's actually my goal, to be able to read that and read the Shema in entirety.
Yes, well, that's
So
the
much of the Shema at the end is like, that's why I read.
correct. So you have the Shema card and the Modani card. That is your homework because those are really important prayers, and those are really good ones to master.
I knew the first line, but I didn't know they were.
Yeah. Well, so actually, the Shema prayer is really beautiful because, it's funny, and I'm sure there's a lot of jewelry and stuff out there. Like one of the interesting jewelry items we have, sorry about that. One of the interesting jewelry items we started carrying, and I got a lot of them. And I don't know, this here is the prayer for travelers. You're supposed to say a prayer when you travel. So someone made a necklace out of it, and I'm sure they have shamas and things like that also.
Yeah.
I don't have it in my stock. I started carrying jewelry. I started carrying, someone going to a lot of jewelry tests. But I'm sure there's all sorts of trinkets, stuff like that with the Shema and Modani. Now I want to note, the prayer is actually really beautiful, the Shema prayer. I'll just tell you very quickly because we're a little over time. So the first prayer of Shema, if you look in the Torah, it has this line here, and then skips this line, and then it has this line, this here. Now, what was the story of this line? Why do we say this line? It's not in the Torah. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Le'olam. Now, you'll notice that the prayers we say this quietly, and on Yom Kippur we say it out loud. Now, what is the story? So the Torah says that Jacob, there's this line in the Torah, it says Jacob gathered his son, and he said, I'm going to tell you the end of days. And then the verse just stops and continues on with the story. He doesn't say when the end of days is going to be. So the Midrash says that what happened is Jacob gathered his children together, and he had the Spirit of God on him. He was going to say prophecy when the end of days was, and he opened his mouth, and he forgot it. Either he forgot it or the Spirit of God left it, he felt like God doesn't want me to say it. So Jacob said, maybe one of my kids has left believing in God. And maybe one of my kids is a sinner, and that's why God doesn't want me to say it. So all his kids said together, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Now Jacob's name is Yisrael, that's where the name Israel comes from. They said, listen, Dad, Yisrael, God is one. So he said, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam. Blessed is God's name in this world. But it's kind of like selling relief, saying, God is present in my children. And that's why we say that. Now in the Torah, this here, we say the Shema, we declare God as one. And then right after it says, you should love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with everything you have. Now there's actually very simply, it says with all your heart, means with your emotions. All your soul means even if God takes your life, you should love God. B'chol ma'odachem means with all your all. Some rabbis say it means with all your money, because some people are like your money or your life, and they're like, take my life, right? So ma'odachem means with everything you have. And then it says these words that I tell you today should be on your heart. You should teach them to your children. You should say them when you get up and when you go to sleep. And then you should tie them on your arm as tefillin, and you should put them on your doors and gates, which is mezuzah.
Yeah.
So that's essentially the Torah is saying the Shema's got to be everywhere. But we take this whole thing and the next paragraph and we put it on all those things. Now women do not wear tefillin because tefillin are only done during the day. And they're not time bound, right? Women don't do it because they're time bound. And women don't wear tefillin because they're time bound, but mezuzahs are not time bound. Mezuzahs are up always, right? So if someone needs mezuzah, actually I put up mezuzahs. If you need a mezuzah, most people who have mezuzahs don't have kosher ones. That's just the nature of it. But that so women don't wear tefillin, but they definitely put up mezuzahs, and they definitely have to do all the other things in this paragraph. All right, any other questions? So yes, that is what you start with, those two prayers, card 68 and the next card.